This is Rally Round the Cannon, some thoughts on Princeton's history by somebody who should know better. Over the last century, bucolic Princeton in its fall glory has developed and enriched priceless traditions celebrating the return to campus, the beginnings of a fresh school year, and the unbridled optimism of full-blown academic fancy. These include the wonderful cane spree, although few recent participants seem to end up in the hospital for some reason, the pageantry of opening exercises, the new fun with freshmen, first-year students, fun with first-year students pre-raid, and step sing, the somber announcements of the year's Princeton MacArthur Fellows and Nobel Prize winners, the semi-tolerance of Parents' Weekend, and, of course, the matchless beauty of the Tiger national holiday, Halloween. But all of these poignant and profane, glorious and gory, pale when compared to our greatest periodic fall ceremony, the welcoming of the new football coach. Or, as we are taught in Sports Media 101 to say these days, the changing of the program. I waited to mention it until you were comfortable with this year's changing of the program. Big hi to Bob Serace out there. But since we're now wrapping up our current iteration with the inevitable hope mixed with disappointment, I thought it would be instructive to look back over the legacy of programs past to recall that no matter what or even whether you think about a new coaching staff's baptism of fire, you have some historical precedent to back you up. In 1914, the year Palmer Stadium opened with a loss to, of course, Yale, the long traditional alumni football committee approach to running the team, rather like the Spanish Inquisition without the incense, collapsed of its own backbiting, and the following year, the first true independent coach, Speedy Rush, was hired. He went 6-2, but the losses were to Harvard and Yale. By today's standards, a glorious success, but after the interruption of World War I, he was not brought back. Bill Roper, a fiery and intuitive leader, had been the volunteer alumnus coach for 5 years under the committee, including the undefeated 1911 Tiger team, and having now made his financial pile in Philadelphia, he was lured back full-time to return the Tigers to glory. In the kerfuffle of reorganizing the post-mobilization campus in 1919, he only went 4-2-1, but you'll hear this often, he beat Yale for the first time since his 1911 team did, and so became a hero. By 1930, the new semi-pro football era of Amos Alonzo Stagg and Knute Rockne had passed the impulsive Roper by. He resigned with a record 89 wins, unmatched since, by the way, and in 1931 his ex-assistant Al Whitmer, who had won a national championship as Tiger basketball coach in 1925, got destroyed to the tune of 1-7, including an historic 51-14 disaster in New Haven. Poof. This precipitated a truly big-time change of program, with non-alum Fritz Kreisler, a Stagg disciple, imported from Minnesota with his assistance for the most memorable 2-2-3 season in the history of Princeton sports in 1932, including an epic 7-7 tie with Yale. When he left after 6 spectacular years for increased power at Michigan, Kreisler's assistant Tad Weeman inherited the team but couldn't match his gaudy 35-9-5 record. After World War II, Weeman didn't return. In fact, his most notable achievement was bringing in a young assistant coach from Michigan who took over the Tiger basketball team in 1938, Cappy Kappen. In contrast to football, that program continues to this day, coach to student, an astonishing 73 seasons later. The next football change of program in 1945 brought in Charlie Caldwell, who had played for Roper and against Stagg, and while coaching at Williams had actually beaten Princeton 19-7 in 1942. A classic single-wing coach, he blew his first Tiger season completely by using the T formation for some reason, and finished 2-3-2. In the chaos of the war's end, however, most of Caldwell's team graduated November 1st before the Yale loss, so nobody blamed him much. Chastened, he switched back to the single wing the next year, and he and his protege Dick Coleman then went 143-60-1 with it over the next 23 years, the golden age of 20th century Princeton football. Their student Jake McCandless switched back to the T, but after an initial title in the Ivies in 1969, the program fell apart. So 1973 saw the first change of program of the formal Ivy era. The siren call of the Caldwell-Coleman afterglow was still strong, and another of their students, Bob Cassiola, was brought in from Connecticut. With a cupboard bare of talent, his first year was calamitous, a 1-8 mess that included no wins over any Ivy opponent for the first time since 1931. 5 years later, he was gone after no winning seasons. One of the truly curious change of program choices in Tiger history came next. Frank Navarro, well liked but previously canned after going 16-36 at Columbia, came in from exile at Wabash and finished 2-5-2 in 1978, essentially no change from Cassiola. But he loved offense, and his passing attack, featuring Bob Holly, beat Yale 35-31 in 1981 in one of Princeton's most memorable games ever. His team was fun to watch, and that earned Navarro 7 years at the helm despite an overall losing record. Ron Rogerson was then brought in from Maine in 1985. It's instructive that virtually nobody, probably including his players, recalls he went 5-5 that year, although that was the best record by a brand new staff since 1932. What they remember is the bonfire. The first in, now steady, 19 years. No one even knew how to build one anymore. That alone, plus his untimely death of a heart attack at age 44 2 years later, assured Rogerson of a unique spot in the pantheon. His assistant Steve Tosches took over for him, becoming Princeton's first winning coach since 1972, following a 6-4 initial season played emotionally in memory of the late Rogerson. Tosches actually won more games, 78, than either Caldwell or Coleman individually, lasting 13 years before a creaky offense and reputed friction with the admissions office took its toll. Time for a change of program. So in 2000 came Roger Hughes from Dartmouth, where as offensive coordinator he had incubated quarterback Jay Fiedler to pro footballdom. Hughes instantly increased offensive production by a touchdown per game, but his first season was 3-7, the same as Tosh's last, albeit with a nice win in the Yale Bowl. The rest of his 10-year tenure, say that 5 times fast, tenure, you know well from the breathtaking pages of your favorite periodical here. Hughes ended as the 4th overall losing coach in the last 39 years of Princeton football. Only Tosches was over 500. In that period, since the Caldwell-Coleman-McCandless era, 4 programs together have gone 175, 180, and 6, managing after all the angst to neither win nor lose the majority of their contests. The last Princeton head football coach to leave voluntarily was Dick Coleman in 1968, a long time ago. But in the magical world of the new football coach, change of program, hope springs eternal. Welcome home, Bob. Yours in virtual orange and black. This is Greg Lang of the great class of 1970. Rally Around the Cannon is a podcast from the Princeton Alumni Weekly online.